you're the host and producer. You run Real Deal Media, correct?
Okay, so realdealmedia.com is a network for the awakened. That's what we say, but we do news. We do late night, like 60-minute type programs as well, but I do a daily show called The Real Deal Report. And I've been doing that since about March 19th, I want to say, when this whole Twilight Zone episode started. And I just kind of did it as a PSA announcement, Adam. I wasn't thinking I'd be doing this because prior to that, I was doing a documentary. I was doing a film in Florida. And then I came to LA to see a lady friend who that's when, and I was living in Dallas. So I came to LA and to see her, and that's when all hell broke loose. I came for St. Patrick's Day. I even think I messaged you. Yeah, I did message you. I said, I was see what you were doing.
Because we had made plans to meet up kind of right before the all the lockdowns and everything started happening.
Yeah, we're going to try to do, because I know we did St. Patrick's Day last year. Yeah, I remember that hangover the next day.
Oh, yeah. Memories for me. You remember the hangover, maybe not the night before.
Yeah, not before. But so I came back because I had just been in Chicago when the lockdown started to come, and I was like pissed because I wanted to see the Green River that I've been hearing about for years. It's like on a bucket list.
Yeah.
So they were locking down. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go west and see my quasi girlfriend, not really. And that's when the lockdowns happened. They closed the border to Texas. So I'm like, okay, like everyone else, I thought, oh, I'll be here 2 weeks. And then I wound up in LA at a friend's house, our friend, and she said, just stay in my vacant apartment and kind of just do some house sitting. And then that's when I started doing this PSA, public service announcement, kind of on my defunct YouTube channel that had like 200 subscribers.
Yeah.
I just kind of used it just to store, I don't know, home videos from vacations and stuff. But that was from like 7 years ago.
Nice.
And then that's how it all started.
That's awesome. So you're currently doing Real Deal Media. You and I, we met years ago when you were producing Fashion Rocks shows. So it was sort of this fashion show, and then you'd have stand-up comedians on. You'd have me on to do stand-up comedy. But you have such a fascinating career that sort of led you to where you are now. You worked for Infowars for a little while, right?
Yes.
What did you do at Infowars?
I was producing segments, guest. Infowars was a very, very, very much so a different operation. There was a lot of focus on documentaries and stuff. When I was there, I was literally just close to putting Alex on Jay Leno right before he left.
So you were trying to get Alex Jones on Jay Leno?
Yeah, well, that was one of the bookings I was doing. I was talking to their producer. They were so interested. He was hot off the grill from the Piers Morgan thing.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
CNN. So, yeah, I was just about to do that. And then also Real Time with Bill Maher. So it was a different atmosphere. Things were not so polarized like they are now.
And so that's an interesting thing there is Alex Jones, who, a lot of people view as a conspiracy theorist. Some people see him as this crazy person, but he does have this following. And there are people who have always, they like listening to him. There are people who believe what he says. There are people who watch him for entertainment value. But it's interesting that someone like him, he is in a way part of like mainstream culture and that people know who he is, but now there's this push to sort of censor anyone who's considered a conspiracy theorist, anyone that people want to deplatform. The first thing I wanted to ask you is, do you consider yourself a conspiracy theorist, and do you think that's a label that is a positive label, or do you think even labeling these people conspiracy theorists is a sort of derogatory term to sort of discredit what they're saying?
Well, if you look at the term, it was created in the late 60s by the Central Intelligence Agency because people were questioning the JFK assassination, and how they were doing it really was, there was no internet, there was no, mass social gatherings anywhere other than concerts. So you had bands like the Byrds and other, notable bands of the mid 60s that were using their concert events to really question the entire event. And so what the Central Intelligence Agency did, they were getting a little frightened because the peacenik movement, the revolutionary anti-war music was really taking precedent in the United States and peeling over to other countries. So they came up with the term conspiracy theorists to water down and make anyone that questions known liars like government as deranged. You've had people that have really taken conspiracy theorists, the flat earth and all the other
Yeah.
crazy things, then you can't put that on anybody that questions an official narrative. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's totally unfair to, when you're doing your job as a journalist, or just a citizen who's questioning things. Well, you're going to be laughed at because you're not part of the collective, or what is now known as the corporate collective, because these
Uh-huh.
aren't journalists. And Chuck Todd is not a journalist. Washington Post is not a free paper. When they have these deals, they get their budget deals from the CIA. This is who they're tied to. It's all out there. So it's hard to say, is conspiracy theorists a bad word? Well, it can be
Uh-huh.
if you question things and you're very sincere about it.
Yeah.
Do I consider myself one? No, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, like, okay, I'm a conspiracy realist. It was a conspiracy to say that there were drones in LA. I would tell my aunt, who's in Orange County,
Uh-huh.
I told my aunt Rose, I said, Rose, I just got to LA and there's literally drones patrolling the neighborhoods right now. Oh,
Uh-huh.
Dean, that's a conspiracy. You're crazy.
Yeah.
But that's what's happening,
And now, what I've always had a problem with there, when it comes to conspiracy theories, generally, whether they're sort of the extreme ones like flat Earth and stuff, or
Right.
they're ones that have some merit, like the JFK assassination, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. There are ones where they've, found some merit to them. My problem, I would say, in the modern world with censoring people and trying to deplatform them, like Alex Jones, I don't agree with much that Alex Jones says, but I also don't think you should be censoring or deplatforming these people, because even if you disagree with something or find it crazy, they have a right to say it. And the other thing I've always thought of in defense of conspiracy theories is that even if the sort of narrative that conspiracy theories attach to things is sometimes far-fetched, or becomes these sort of fictional stories in of itself, a lot of the things they're skeptical about are the sort of right things to ask questions about. And sometimes there are, within a conspiracy theory, there's something that it may not be the narrative that they attach themselves to, but there's something that the public should be questioning. Like, one example I always give is like Pizzagate. Now, some aspects of Pizzagate, devolved into this conspiracy theory, but there was people who were, investigating that world that knew about Jeffrey Epstein and were trying to draw attention to what Jeffrey Epstein was long before he became a household name.
Sure.
So within conspiracy theories, there is merit to some of the things that they're skeptical about, even if you don't buy into the whole narrative that they create.
Sure. And what government does is they purposely put disinfo out to make it look like a crazy thing, to say, oh, see, you're tied to that, so therefore you're a conspiracy theorist. So it works both ways. Like you said, if you question things, to be labeled that is almost a way of deflection. You mentioned Pizzagate. Well, it was no conspiracy when the FBI said the following terms, pizza, pasta, all these things are used by pedophilia communities and human traffickers when they communicate in emails.
Yeah, because that report came out before Pizzagate was a thing. They had a report that said that those. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah,
paper,
and then when you look at the Podesta emails, and this is what it was all about, is they didn't want anyone to look inside the WikiLeaks, and they didn't want anyone to see what those emails were about. They never said, oh, those are false, those are totally wrong. They said, no, it's conspiracy. Even CNN said, Cuomo, Fredo, what's his name? He said, nobody has the right to look at these. We should just leave it to us to look at the WikiLeaks. So that's what it was about.
Yeah, and it seems like that's what they're kind of discrediting the Hunter Biden laptop story with also. Yeah. Regardless of whether or not, people can sort of make up their own minds as to whether the information on that laptop, would have changed who they were voted for, or whether they think it's a real story. But the media dismissed it all and said, oh, that's just Russian disinformation, which wasn't true. That really is Hunter Biden's laptop, and those emails really do exist on there. Now they could try to spin that in a way. If they were smart, I think you could spin that and say, well, this is just business as usual, or it's not, that controversial what was said. Now, I think it was, but they instead tried to discredit the whole thing and say this is Russian disinformation and this is conspiracy theory, and it's not even worth covering or allowing people to put this story out there.
Well, I mean, this is how the nanny state works. They decide what's conspiracy, what's fact. They're the fact checkers.
Yes.
They're the HOA of our lives. They get to decide what you see, what you read, what you believe, every aspect of your life. And people are okay with that as long as you say, if you go against it, you're a racist, a bigot, and a homophobe. So this is how they shape the narrative. They put you in a corner, just like if you question tactics of Black Lives Matter, then they're saying, oh, you think Black Lives don't matter?
Yeah.
You see how, I mean, this is
Yep.
literally fifth grade level logic here.
Yeah.
And we're told that, but it's being backed by the establishment, the corporate establishment, that if you go against it, then there's something wrong with you. Just like if you question, yeah, I don't know if there's WMDs in Iraq. Oh, you're not for the terrorist, are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is what George Orwell talked about. Double speak, up is down and down is up. We're living through it right now.
It is a very Orwellian, like literally Orwellian culture where they're trying to get definitions of words changed in the dictionary. They're trying to censor media. They're trying to dictate what language you can use in order to support one political narrative.
Yeah. It's a very serious thing, and that's why they don't even have 1984 in the high school curriculum anymore. But in LA Unified District, they have the history of Black Lives Matter. Yeah. Well, then when you look into Black Lives Matter, you realize, well, they were founded by Judith Rosenberg. It's all tied to like Mossad ties. There's hints of that. Then all the corporations that fund them, like Pepsi, Airbnb, Dropbox, all these huge corporations are funding the Black Lives Matter, who then give it to an Act Blue, a political action committee, that then give it to the DNC. Mm-hmm. Now, that's fact. That is not conspiracy theory. But if they say it is, then it is. Or you're like Alex Jones. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
I'd rather be questionable than just, okay, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Like, and what I find terrible about the way they sort of censor and fact check these things is that when you have something like Twitter, like when Jack Dorsey is, refusing to run the New York Post article about Hunter Biden, or when they're labeling questions about the legitimacy of the election as misinformation, mm-hmm. they're not doing this fairly to both sides. So the entire like Russian collusion narrative that the media latched onto about Donald Trump, that to me was a conspiracy theory. There was not much there for real. They also had all these other stories. Now, they weren't exactly conspiracy theories, but they were sort of fake news, like Jussie Smollett and Covington Catholic and Althea Bernstein. And for the whole spring of the first spring of Trump's presidency, they were saying there was this wave of anti-Semitic bomb threats against Jewish centers. And then it turned out they were all hoaxes called in by a left-wing journalist and a American Israeli Jew who was living in Israel at the time. And they latched onto every one of these stories without the information, without the facts. They never called those disinformation. They never tried to debunk those stories. There were all these reports that came in from BuzzFeed and the New York Times about the Trump administration that were later retracted. And the media just attached themselves to those. But then when there's a story that they find even a little bit dubious, or they have any skepticism about that benefits the right or hurts the left, they say, oh no, that's a conspiracy theory. That's fake news, and we have to censor that.
You're absolutely right. You go on Twitter right now, and you're going to see every story is an anti-Trump story. And this is what they're projecting now, either Twitter, Facebook, and Google or YouTube. Google, same thing. Either they're a utility, like it says in their clause, or they're a
publisher.
A publisher, thank you.
Yeah.
So which one is it? Now, they're at a head right now, because if you say, okay, we're going to strip you of the utility clause, then they're just going to outright get rid of everyone like tonight.
Yeah. For my viewers who don't know that distinction, because that's an important thing, explain a little bit the difference between whether a tech company or a social media company is a publisher or a utility.
Okay, so the Facebook, for example, it is considered like the public commons, the public square, like in the old days, you used to go to the public square, the town crier would be there and stuff.
Yeah.
The newspaper.
Hear ye.
Yeah, the town local newspaper. Well, that's what Facebook is. They don't get taxed because they're considered like General Electric utility gas. Everybody has the right to be on it, just like MasterCard or Visa, unless, you financially can or whatever. Now you have MasterCard, now you have Visa, or PayPal rather too. We won't do business with this person because the ADL said they're racist, and it just keeps going on and on. Yeah. They're even doing to the left that question, ties to certain countries, which I won't say, they get shut down, or anti-war liberals get shut down under the guise of, well, you want to be like Infowars, do you? So what the utility thing is, that's coming to a head. They're even ignoring the executive order that Trump signed, that they have to have a fair, balanced, playing field. So they're publishers. They're acting as publishers.
which means they
Therefore,
kind of approve of the content that's on their site. So like
right.
and like the analogy I've always drawn is like when people argue whether you should be able to suspend YouTube accounts and Facebook accounts and Twitter accounts for what they say, is if you view it as a publisher, then it's a site like Mediator, Medium, where it's someone posting articles that the publisher approves of, and that information is sort of endorsed by them. Where it's a utility is like your phone, like the phone is a utility, your phone bill. Now, someone can say something racist or horrible over the phone. They shouldn't, but if they do that, you can't take that utility away from them. You can't suspend them from communicating. And we've sort of handed all of our communications over to these tech companies. And that's what's always hard for me is we now use these social media platforms as a mean of mass communications, even though at their start they are companies that we somewhat naively and foolishly handed all of our information and means of communication over to.
Absolutely. It was one big like psyop to get us
Yeah.
all on board, to get us on the grid, just like they told everyone, come to LA, come to New York, be part of the city. So you're part of the grid. Then they control you. If they don't like what you say, they turn your water off. Well, the same thing with communication. And what this is doing, Adam, it's paving the way to what they have in China right now. It's called the social crediting system, social credit score. So, and we're kind of conditioned like that already. People are like already thinking twice. No, I can't say that, or I'm going to lose 10 years worth of baby pictures of my kids and my marriage and my vacation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's really keeping people and holding them back right now, because we've invested 10 years now.
Yeah.
So this is preparing us for the the reset, the global reset that's coming in January around the world. After World War II, we had the brand new deal. What was originally the New World Order deal, but FDR changed it to the New Deal. So we have the new global reset happening. It's already happening throughout Europe. They're already putting restrictions in crypto for the digital dollar coming out there. And it's a race between China and the United States of, are we going to have an American reset, or are we going to be part of the globalist reset? That's what we're facing right now. And if you didn't know any better, what YouTube has done is pigeonholed you. So if you look up a video and you don't even know who Adam Yenser is, and you look up one video of his one time, well, when you go back to your homepage on YouTube, there's going to be 20 videos of Adam.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be pigeonholed there, or things you're looking at. So if you're looking for specific news, like something left-leaning or whatever, that's all you're ever going to get.
Yeah.
And that's how they polarized us. So people can't imagine that we're even talking like this, because they don't hear this anywhere, because they've put us in these virtual echo chambers to then polarize, to push into a civil war, what they've tried to stifle the right into, and to just put us in these guillotines, if you will, or re-education camps, because they're talking like that right now, Adam. They're talking about punishing Republicans when and if Kamala and Biden take over.
Yeah, and that's scary when they're talking about, like, oh, we should keep a list of people who have supported Trump or said things, and we should make it hard for them to get jobs, or we should, retaliate against them. And that's a real thing that people like Robert Reich, and there's people on the left that are legitimately pushing that idea that these people should be blacklisted or punished or something for their support of Trump.
They're doing that throughout Europe right now. A German doctor, this has made the rounds on YouTube. It's probably not up anymore. He was talking about the kind of the truths of the vaccines and what medicines do work against the deadly COVID-19 that 99.8% people recover from.
Yeah.
The doctor was live on a live stream on YouTube, and literally the police broke into his house with semi-automatics everywhere. Arrested
this was in
him,
Europe?
pulled him off. In Germany, yeah.
And that's another thing that you touched on there is always the left and the media will always say, we trust the scientists, we trust the doctors, until there's a scientist or doctor that says something they disagree with. Then it's, oh, that scientist or that doctor is a crackpot. That person's not a legitimate doctor or something.
Right, and
it's
that's
politics first, and then science and facts second.
Well, that's what it is. And people say, well, you don't believe in global warming. Well, if you understand all these research papers in the universities, you only get the grant money when you do a pro global warming research paper. That's how these things work. If you were to do anything other, then you're not going to get the grant money. And that's the problem with universities. That's a whole nother issue of the college industrial complex. So we're really at a time, this is a world war setting right now. We have a Chinese new century, as they've said in many TED Talks and all these things, where you have the technocrats who invested in China for 30 plus years. They deindustrialized the United States, where the only thing we have left really has been the service sector. Well, where's this pandemic done, Adam? It's gotten rid of the service sector, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's destroyed. Yes, it's destroyed small businesses. And then one other thing that I know, now you personally used to live in Los Angeles here for a little while. You've moved to Austin. I know here in LA, lots of people on both the right and the left who, it sort of started right before the pandemic, but it's escalated during the pandemic. There is an exodus from big cities right now.
Mhm.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, that is a serious thing. I mean, you literally had to book a U-Haul weeks in advance, no joke, leaving Southern California, and same for New York. And a lot of the New Yorkers were actually leaving New York before the pandemic, like you mentioned, because they can't afford it. All the original steakhouses in New York, the original Jewish delis, pizzerias, gone, closed. Nobody can afford, and the answer of just tax the rich more. Well, the rich get 50% of their checks are gone. They leave, they put their money elsewhere, like the uber rich, and they'll go to a tax-free safe haven in some state that welcomes them, and that's
Yeah.
where you see the growth in places like Texas, in
Yep.
places like Idaho, and that the media has lampooned for years of just being
Yeah.
just rednecks. Yeah, well, you know what? Who's laughing now? You go to ghost towns in Hollywood. How's that ever going to be rebuilt?
And it's scary it's scary what's happening in LA, and it's scary what's happening where these people are going, because it is now some of these people are leaving because of the way the pandemic and the lockdowns have affected the economy. But on a broader scale, there are a lot of people who they sort of lived in LA and New York City and these places run by leftist policies, and then after the leftist policies that they supported destroyed that place,
Mm-hmm.
they moved to a conservative run place where the economy is booming, where there are more there's more freedom from taxes. There's more freedom for regulation to operate their businesses, to make money. And they're just sort of, their policies destroyed one place, and now they're going to another place. And tragically, they're voting for the same policies in these new places that ruined the last place they lived.
Yeah, it's a serious problem. Now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of fine, good business owners from California and New York that have brought their successful business to Texas, to Florida. And those people aren't the problem. They assimilate. You have the refugees, if you will, from places like Chicago, from places like New York and LA, that bring their policies here to Austin. Now, I've been living here off and on for 7 years, but they'll bring their anti-gun policies here. They'll take over the city council. Then they'll just push it out. They'll have a mayor who says defund the cops and then get rid of them, and then replace them with who? They're saying, oh, well, we have a civilian force. Well, Obama did have a civilian force. He talked about that in 2008 of replacing the police. He wanted a Obama corps. So it's called AmeriCorps now. So that's who they want to replace this with. So my point is, imagine going to like Somalia, okay? And let's say you and I move there. Do you think they would allow us to do our July 4th traditions and change their traditions and laws? And it doesn't work that way. So that creates resentment. So there is just class and classes and people in Texas that have been here for, hundreds of years, whatever, that hate people from California. But it's a serious problem. The fact that California has been usurped by communists and corporate communists and fascists, it affects the entire country because everybody's leaving. Yeah. And California is the 8th biggest economy in the world, or it was. But it's the people that are running it to a ground. I mean, that's why you have 9 million votes missing.
Yeah. And then one other thing I want to ask you about, just because it's in the news a lot and you keep up on these things, what is your take? Can you explain for people who don't know, you know about QAnon, right? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Explain QAnon to people a little bit, and what is your take personally on QAnon?
Well, this is how dire it is. The fact that we're even saying that word on YouTube could get this a strike on your page or taken down. Okay, that's how serious it is.
Yeah.
Over something they call a conspiracy, right? If it's just a conspiracy, then are they taking people that talk about, Bigfoot and all that stuff, or NASA or anything? Are they getting taken down? No, QAnon. Then why did the Congress? They all came together to do a resolution. They voted on a resolution to condemn QAnon. So there's something to that. And
so first, sorry, before we get I know a little bit about it because I've read about it, but you probably know more. So what is QAnon for those people who don't understand? So there's someone who's that people believe is either in the Trump administration or connected to the Trump administration, who has been, what platform is it on? Is it 4chan or Reddit, where they've been sending out?
It was on 8chan, and then now it's on, I believe, on 8kun and or KUN or something. And I haven't followed it much this year. I've been so busy. But I'm not one of these people like, oh, shame on you, you like QAnon and that. No, I think I've met a lot of QAnon people, and they're some of the most biggest researchers. They research it on their own. This QAnon phenomenon, it really puts clues out there that people look into. I don't see how that's an issue. Makes you look deeper. It's like one of the most fascinating things since the Monopoly scratcher game.
Oh my gosh,
I
yeah.
don't, I don't see what the problem is, but the people that seem to have a problem with it are people in politics, because it's really putting some things out there in the American lexicon that nobody was thinking about anymore. And who is it exactly? It's a team of people, from my understanding, from Intel. I don't want to get too much into it, but it's a team of people in the military connected to the NSA that are surrounding the president currently. Because remember, he's fighting the Central Intelligence Agency. He's fighting the same people that JFK was fighting. And that's what this is.
And now, so the media always describes QAnon, the way I've always seen it described by the media is that it's people who believe there's a cabal of elites that consists of celebrities and left-wing politicians who run a global network of pedophile cannibals, basically. And that the Trump administration is going to bust this ring of pedophile cannibals in this event that, what do they call it, the storm or something like that?
The storm, man, the Great Awakening.
So is that an accurate description of what QAnon people believe and what it is?
Right, I think that's kind of a little fly-by-night headline of it. I think what QAnon has been is telling people of what's really been going on behind the control grid of censorship and the controlled American media, that's Mockingbird media, that's Operation Mockingbird, CIA. It's really given people insight in things they never even knew about. I mean, did they know how prevalent Luciferians are throughout Hollywood, throughout the music industry? I could tell you, Adam, being in that industry and doing music, there's a lot of high level Freemasons. I've met them. They have a certain handshake. You see the rings. They do things that people probably wouldn't want to know about. And, so they're shedding some light on things that have not had the light shed on them. So of course they're going to come out. First they ignore, then they laugh. Now they're attacking. Just like Gandhi said, that's exactly what they're doing. So I'm not here to say, oh, go listen to QAnon now, but I'm not going to sit here and bash it and be part of that collective that says, oh, screw you.
And that's why they deplatform people. Also, yeah, it's like I don't personally believe the stuff from QAnon, but like I was saying earlier, I think there are things that it's healthy to be skeptical about, and they ask questions about certain things, and it's worth people understanding what it is they're looking into and what they believe.
Right.
Instead of just
why can't we find our own discernment? Exactly. Why do we have to get deplatformed? Why, when we talk about hydroxychloroquine, those doctors on the step, why did they get censored? Why did they get deplatformed? Then we get harassed by sock puppets accounts all over line. It's a dangerous thing. And if the shoe was on the other foot, I would be condemning it just as bad.
Yes. Yep.
As when it was happening to the counterculture of the 60s, when they were speaking out against war, they were harassed. It's not right then. It's not right now.
And that's what frustrates me. I try to treat both sides fairly. I will call out conspiracy theories on the right. I will call out conspiracy theories on the left. I will also defend the free speech of both sides. Like, I don't like Marxism, but if someone has a YouTube channel where they're talking about Marxism, as much as I think that's stupid and I don't like it, I'm not trying to censor them or take away their right to free speech to say something that I disagree with.
Well, and they call it hate speech. Here's let me ask you, Adam, what is hate speech?
See, I don't support any definition of hate speech because it's
Nobody
subjective.
Knows.
It's subjective. It's whatever the beholder feels offended by. They can say that that's hate speech.
Exactly. I mean, it's like when my mother used to say to me when I was young, "Oh, you're not fat, you're big boned." Well, what's the definition of big boned? I mean, it's I don't understand.
Now I'm your therapist. Now
how much is this per hour?
Yeah.
People are so docile, they're so apathetic because we've been so decadent for so long with all the toys of technology and the narcissism of social media that, whatever we'll go with that, just let me get back to this, and taking selfies. And I think it's been a detriment to our society where we're not thinking about true value, what we need to be thinking about. Instead, we're calling people conspiracy theorists, Russian agents, bigots, homophobes, and racists, kill them, put them in the gulag. No, that's not going to solve anything. And I guarantee you that's not going to work here in America because we have our Second Amendment and our firearms for a reason, for this very moment.
Exactly. So for my viewers, if they want to check out more of you, where can they find you right now?
Just go to realdealmedia.com, Real Deal Media. I'm there. We have so many new shows coming up. We're doing some game shows we got coming on, stuff I want to involve you in as well.
Awesome.
You know, we do a lot of fun things because it's not just about the darkness, really. It's about this new age of Renaissance. We're having sections for people that are artists. You know, submit your art and we're going to put it up there. And people and musicians, because there's no venues to play right now.
Yeah.
So we have a show called Angie After Dark, and like MTV did. It's a good platform and showcase to, you know, for musicians to play again. So we're news and we're everything that they're not. So come down to realdealmedia.com and, you know, we're going to have a good time.
That's awesome. Be sure to check out Real Deal Media. And Dean Ryan, thank you so much for being here.
Adam, it's always a pleasure, and you're one of the hardest working men in the business that I know.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I want to interview you and also catch up with you and everything.
Yeah, like there's some serious shit I have to tell you about. I mean,
yeah.